So now I'm heading down the mountain. Uh, it'll take a little while, but when I kind of in climbing the mountain, one of the things I had just these different dimensions. One is the in looking to move my life up the mountain. There are different sort of rationalizations that I have, and those rationalizations show up and they're common, and I think they happen a lot today. And in that, I had a tinge of racism, sexism, although I would probably deny it. I would probably say, no, I'm not really this way. And I think there's some truth in that, because I don't think that at the deepest level, I don't think that we are. But at the same time, we have this sort of brokenness to us in trying to reconcile these two realities of love and the pecking order that we grow up in. And that's a part of, in a sense, part of human nature that needs to be tamed. And so I had those isms, a shade of racism, sexism, critical of others, a good way to put other people down with a joke, fun at others' expense, that you could always find people that we want to, have a good laugh at someone else's expense. And there's a certain innocence at times to that, but when it becomes something that's kind of showing up a lot, then, that it's indicative of something. So, when I had the great pause, I had my own experience of kind of creating this bond, of finding this place of trust and being able to start to let go of those rationalizations. And the other thing were sort of habits, or you can even say addictions. They come from the stress of the struggle of life, in that sense of, you get to trying to work out, hey, every day is kind of fighting up the mountain, but you want love in there, and you're trying to work the two together in some way, and you end up with different addictions and bad habits, and I just see them as sort of coping mechanisms in a sense for that. So when I decided from my own great pause that, I'm going to, instead of climbing the mountain, I'm going to start to go down, because I felt that model that I had was pointing that way, this person of Christ. So that's what I started to follow. And what happened was those rationalizations, the isms, and sort of the bad habits that I had that interfered with my life in small ways sometimes, but they became sort of roadblocks. They hurt certain relationships that I had. And I started to let them go. I mean, they just started to kind of go away, you might say. Why? Because I was starting to go in this other path, and now I'm sort of coming down the mountain and having a different way of seeing things. Now it happens in stages. It doesn't happen all. There's a lightning bolt in a way, and there's a struggle to do that. And not everyone is called to, invited to kind of take a turn and be here in Ecuador like me, or to go, you might say, as far as I've gone, which I'm going to share in a moment in a way but to the degree that everyone feels in their conscience and their heart to do it, it will be, in a certain sense, the same. It's a struggle to let go. It's a struggle to change habits. It's a struggle to begin to form a new sense of trust in life that, hey, I can look at myself a little more honestly, and finding support in that. So, and what I'm sharing right now is not to say that everyone should go exactly my path. I hope that it provides a sort of a model that paves the way for folks who, whatever level, a degree, and way, that you see a dynamic in it that can be a companion, and if you're going to go that way, and you don't feel alone in it. But for me, I had just a major change, and I ended up taking my financial resources, including 401k. This is over time, including my property and selling that, and distancing away from the professional work that I was doing, going more into work of service and you might say the volunteer side of things, and exploring places in the what you'd call like religious life dedicated to things in that, but spending time in places that living in places that I wouldn't have lived before, and going into places that I wouldn't have gone into before. And those are places that typically, I like to say, that most people in the mountains and valleys of life don't want to be. So, but it's because I had the experience in the great pause, an experience of change, not just change, but of love. That love could now start to get into me in a new way. And so that made me, the love of people that I had inside of me, but was sort of kind of restricted, maybe held in check by the pecking order side of me, was now coming out. And I was living it. And so, now I don't have a job, I don't have retirement, I don't own property. I mean, belongings I have could fit in a large walk-in closet that some folks might have. I don't have a wife and kids like I wanted before. I don't have, I have friends at different, in a lot of different places. But, there's no retirement fund, and there's no sort of the security and comfort of having a place that's not in the valley of the mountain. I don't have. My parents have passed away, sister. I don't have family. I have very little sort of family in that sense. So I say all that not more as that the other side is that I'm very happy. I get to, in being and coming down the mountain and living now more, you might say, in the valley, which would have been a foreign world to me before, I use all of my gifts and talents. See, when you're climbing the mountain, what happens is you have to put to sleep. You have to leave behind certain parts of you, because that's not what's going to get you up the mountain. More of a specialization. Now I'm much more balanced, and I use the technology, I use, speaking, I play with kids, there's a whole range of things. All of my sort of relationship, temperament, everything is kind of fuller for me in life. Now, I don't have financial security. I've spent time on SNAP, on food stamps, times I couldn't pay rent. But look, every single day of my life, I have had everything I've needed to live. And the fulfillment that I have in what I do, as I would say, is that, I have hundreds of experiences I could take. I don't know, maybe I'm exaggerating a bit. There's always some exaggeration in stories, but I could take one of those realities and it could become a movie. The depth of joy. I have always a deep joy inside of me, a peace that nothing, and I have no idea where I'll live in 6 months, but nothing can take that away. There's a deep happiness and joy underneath all of it. Now again, I don't say everyone to go and do all that full sort of path that I'm describing, but I hope that it shines a light, and it gives a sort of courage to not be afraid that if you do decide to come down and change, and that you're not going to lose what you really, really want, and you get back, everything that you've given up, you get back even more and more fulfilled. Here's a few dogs. Sometimes dogs here, what do they say, bravo, but they don't seem to be. So dogs that, in any case, coming down the mountain, you might encounter some things along the way. You encounter different things. So I just share that of coming down the mountain, that there's one side is whatever change you're going to make, you're going to lose something. But you're going to get it back, and in a new way, and you're going to get more happiness and peace, joy in life. You're going to get relationships with people, and you're going to get them in a deeper way that you didn't know or see before. And this movement towards love, letting the love grow, and equality, it kills and it eliminates racism, sexism, the isms, and it takes us out of those, maybe we might have frustrating habits in life. It leads us out of those. So I'm still walking down the mountain, and I'll move on to the next words in a moment. So one more thing adding on to that is just that coming down the mountain and coming into the world of others that are typically in the lower parts of the pecking order, people who have experienced and lived the results of racism and the other isms, is that you discover so much more about other people if love is driving it. And not only that, about yourself and about your own culture and about your own history, personally as well as in family, as well as culture from your ethnic origins. You know, my Irish and Armenian culture, in a sense, discovering that has been fascinating, because coming and knowing Ecuadorian culture makes me reflect on U.S. culture, and I've come to know and think and embrace, and I see U.S. culture in a different way, and that's a good thing, because the more that you kind of grow and know, and the more you can love. So to love people and to see context of things, love brings out a balance, and you see complementarity and what's in different people and what's in different cultures. And that is it's not about suppressing one's own people and culture, and it's not about abandoning that either. It's that when you come down the mountain in love and you come to know other people, if it's inequality, if it's the equality that love calls for, then there's a giving and receiving in both ways, and you discover the beauty in each. You discover the faults in each. And that's what happens when people love each other, is that you can then come to accept that, embrace, and still have a relationship. So the idea of coming down the mountain doesn't mean that you're going to lose who you are. It's very much the opposite, that you're going to get back who you are. You're going to really see and know your own culture and the greatness and beauty of your own culture, but in others as well. And in this time, especially with in the U.S., with Black Americans, looking into people and culture and the history and story and who people are, beyond just what the pecking order lets us see in each other. So coming down the mountain and entering into the world of others who you may not have kind of spent time in the world before, to stay even, is it's a growth, and it's coming not to lose who you are, but to actually become more of who you are. So, coming down the mountain, I kind of divested of the finances that I had into, and so all of that went into basically into service of people who basically live more down in society's pecking order, and in my own being with people, giving myself and in time of my own being with people out of love. I love to be with people, and people who are sort of on the bottom level. It's great to company and to be someone to be and give a sense of love to in that time, and the financial resources given in a lot of different ways, and it's to people of all backgrounds and especially those who experience a lot of depression, with Black Americans and Native Americans, indigenous peoples in North America, here in South America, people who are much more so the poorer end of things. So, part of that is paying back, in a sense. And so it's impossible to pay back everything in a certain way, and maybe, how much is really owed and what's really our responsibility for each of us to work out, but more so is a love to give. So with this video now, and the timing of it is, in part, it's something I've wanted to do for a while, but in part with the what's recently happened with regard to the conflict between the whole addressing of racism that came up because of the tension between police and Black Americans. And it's just in this time, and what I'm talking about now is the time for me to just express my apologies to Black Americans, friends, acquaintances, or anyone else who might be viewing this, for my role in that, especially in the time before my own pause in life. And I hope that, what I've been doing is in some way, is a giving back for what I may have cost. And these things happen in ways that we can't really put, hard numbers or realities to. It's elusive in those ways, but in the giving back of who I am, I hope that I'm just asking, just expressing my apologies. And if anyone wants to talk about something that I might have done, or how I see things, or because of race, feeling that I might have done in the past, I'm free to talk. So feel free to reach out. And that brings us back down to the bottom of the mountain.